bully me till I tried to end it all. I served a freezing plate. I apologize if this is too long and for the redaction, as English is not my primary language. As a background, I lived in Venezuela, and in here, public or semi-private schools and high schools can be very violent. My mom had to change me from a cute private school to an awful semi-private Catholic and gender-sorted one because the private was kinda far of her job. Picking me up was truly a nightmare for her, and I obliged because I knew my mom was doing a lot of sacrifices to work and get a degree at the same time. She's my hero BTW. When I was transferred to that awful school, I started being heavily bullied for being gay. I did not know that it was the reason till years after, as I was a kinda-mannered boy, and a friend I still have from the girls section explained that to me. All kids on my section bullied me to certain, bearable, degree, but there were 3 kids, let's call them Luis, David and Pedro, who got really bad on me. They would call me slurs, eat the lunch I would bring from home, threaten me with punches if I refused to help with their homework, but still beat me every day, bruises and everything. I almost unalived myself to times and hid everything from my mom, as I was thinking it will just make things worse in school if she intervened. Now to the revenge. I was finishing 9th grade and when my mom came to school, she saw the bullying it was done to me. Spoke with the nuns at school, but those bitches said all of that was to man me up. After a good legal threat, Mom started the process to switch me to a cutsy private one, and I said, F\CK it, in finals week. For David, I told my mom one day to give me ballon pasta as lunch and went to a veterinary store to get some good, cattle grade, laxative that I mixed in the pasta right after getting to school and left it on my backpack on recess. When I came back from recess, Bruce from Matilda was grunting in pain and asking the teacher to go to the bathroom. Teacher of course said him to hold till the final was complete, but there was no holding for that, and a yellow stream started pouring out of his pants. He had to miss all finals because he was in a hospital getting his sheet back together, literally, and tried to report me afterwards, but I was not on that school anymore. He had to take reparations, a super hard test to avoid students from repeating a whole year, but still passed to the next grade. Luis was a little harder. This kid was really dumb and sometimes shared stories of her mom and dad beating him constantly. Since he was stupid and needed high grades to pass, he thought threatening me to switch exams with me would save his dumb ass, and of course I did it, but answering everything wrong to gave him the lowest grade possible. When results were posted in a parents' meeting, he had to go to reparations, and Mononernal Buddy failed so hard his mom beated him until he would literally have panic attacks when a test was shown on his face. From what I heard, Pedro went missing until I got to 2nd year college, but the girlfriend he got pregnant at 4th year, 11th year in a normal educative system, reached me on Facebook begging to help him get a bead in a public hospital to get treated. I don't know how, but she knew my grandma was head of inpatient nursery at a public hospital in Caracas, and due the political and economic collapse of the country, the only way to not get treated in a hall with medications that you may need to bring yourself was to know someone from the hospital and a charge high enough to treat you like a human being. Seems like tough guy was acting cool by chugging beer and cheap vodka in every waking moment of the day. He got cirrhosis and stomach cancer at age 20, only Lord knows why, and of course I called, told her that Pedrito is a horrible person, that I truly hope he stops living painfully, and blocked everyone I knew from that school. I blamed myself a little for the last one, but my therapist told me that I cannot undo what I did, and also that I don't owe anything to anyone. Pedrito Creo Curvos y la Sacron las Oias. Story 2. Hurt my family. Guess you'll die. Asterisk excuse, any structural, grammatical mistakes? English is not my first language and I'm typing this on my phone. Asterisk. My grandfather grew up in a rural Peruvian town where only his family lived, very isolated from others. They lived about half an hour away from the nearest town. This story happened sometime in the 1940s. As one would assume, everyone was close. This story is about one of my grandfather's many cousins. Let's call her Mary, about 20, and her husband, Peter, about 25. Mary's dad went away to work in the capital for a while, taking Mary with him. There, she met Peter, fell in love, and married. They returned to town a couple of months after they wed. They rented the room at the local saloon, I think that's the word anyway, while Peter worked with Mary's dad selling goods in neighboring tows to save money. Turns out, Peter was in a hole. Not only did he cheat on Mary while he was away, working, but he also severely beat her when he was home, even more than the standard at the time. Eventually, the owner of the saloon, a distant cousin of Mary, noticed, hereby called owner, about 50. He confronted her, and after a lot of prodding, she admitted to everything. She hadn't confessed before, as her close family, especially her dad, opposed the marriage, and she was ashamed to admit Peter was an abuser. Well, she wouldn't have to suffer much longer, as owner would take matters into his own hands. He liked to play a prank on newcomers. He would take them to a field a half-hour away to hunt what he claimed was the most delicious bird he had ever tasted. Spoiler alert. That bird did not exist. It had a funny name I can't remember, so I'll just call it Birdie. He would leave them in the middle of the field with a net while he went away to chase the birdies into the net. He would then walk back to town while the newcomer was kept waiting for the birdies. Eventually, newcomer would return to town and be mocked and laughed at for buying the story. Just some good old rural town fun. He had yet to prank Peter as he was mostly away working. However, not long after an opportunity presented itself, he was able to lead Peter away with the same story as always, but he didn't play the prank on him. Instead, he led him to a field 1.52 hours away instead, getting him drunk on the way, and then pushed him into a nearby lake, where he drowned. He then returned to town and claimed Peter had wanted to actually hunt the birds, not just wait, and it was hard to convince him otherwise as a way to excuse his tardiness. Peter's disappearance was noticed the next day by Mary's dad, when he didn't show up to his house or work and when he wasn't in the rented room. Owner gave his excuse. The others at the saloon and his wife corroborated his story. A few days later, Peter was found drowned in the lake. It was concluded that while waiting for the birdies, he'd gotten drunk, and when he attempted to return to town, he had gotten lost and fallen into the lake. Unlike her husband, Mary's life ended on a happy note. She remarried to a much nicer man, had 8 children, and bought a house in the capital where she lived until she died of cancer circa 2003. The amazing owner also had a happy life, and died in the late 1970s. My grandfather only knew this story because he overheard owner tell Mary's dad the true story. Apart from him, no one else but the 3 of them knew. He told me one day I was asking about secrets about his small town. Yes, I like gossip.